It would be nice if I unmuted myself before I tried speaking. That would help a lot, wouldn't it? Yeah. So, anyway, hello. This is kind of sort of spur of the moment. I scheduled it today, but it was spur of the moment in that today I decided to do a live stream today. So, anyway, how's everyone doing? And we're going to do Today in History first. And this one's a bit of a fun one. U.S. hockey team beats the Soviets in the quote-unquote miracle on ice. In one of the most dramatic upsets in Olympic history, the underdog U.S. hockey team, made up of college players, defeated the four-time defending gold medal winning Soviet team at the 13th Olympic Winter Games in Lake Placid, New York. The Soviet squad, previously regarded as the finest in the world, fell to the youthful American team 4-3 before a frenzied crowd of 10,000 spectators. 2 days later, the Americans defeated Finland 4-2 to clinch the hockey gold. The Soviet team had captured the previous 4 Olympic hockey golds, going back to 1964, and had not lost an Olympic hockey game since 1968. 3 days before the Lake Placid Games began, the Soviets routed the U.S. team 10-3 in an exhibition game at Madison Square Garden in New York City. The Americans looked scrappy, but few blamed them for it. Their average age, after all, was only 22, and their team captain, Mike Eruzione, apologies for mispronunciation, was recruited from the obscurity of the Toledo Blades of the International League. Few had high hopes for the 7th-seeded U.S. team entering the Olympic tournament, but the team soon silenced its detractors, making it through the opening round of play undefeated, with 4 victories and 1 tie, thus advancing to the 4-team medal round. The Soviets, however, were seeded number 1 and, as expected, went undefeated with 5 victories in the first round. Excuse me. On Friday afternoon, February 22nd, the American amateurs and the Soviet Dream Team met before a sold-out crowd at Lake Placid. The Soviets broke through first, with their new young star, Valery Krotov, deflecting a slap shot beyond American goalie Jim Craig's reach in the first period. Midway through the period, Buzz Schneider, the only American who had previously been an Olympian, answered the Soviet goal with a high shot over the shoulder of Vladislav Tretiak, the Soviet goalie. The relentless Soviet attack continued as the period progressed, with Sergei Makarov giving his team a 2-1 lead. With just a few seconds left in the first period, American Dave Christian shot the puck down the ice in desperation. Mark Johnson picked it up and sent it into the Soviet goal with 1 second remaining. After a brief Soviet protest, the goal was deemed good and the game was tied. In the second period, the irritated Soviets came out with a new goalie, Vladimir Mishkin, and turned up the attack. The Soviets dominated play in the second period, outshooting the U.S. 12-2 and taking a 3-2 lead with a goal by Alexander Maltsev just over 2 minutes into the period. If not for several remarkable saves by Jim Craig, the Soviet lead would surely have been higher then 3-2 as the third and final 20-minute period began. Sorry about that. Nearly 9 minutes into the period, Johnson took advantage of a Soviet penalty and knocked home a wild shot by David Silk to tie the contest at 3-3. About a minute and a half later, Mike Eruzione, whose last name means eruption in Italian, picked up a loose puck in the Soviet zone and slammed it past Mishkin with a 25-foot wrist shot. For the first time in the game, the Americans had the lead, and the crowd erupted in celebration. There were still 10 minutes of play to go, but the Americans held on, with Craig making a few more fabulous saves. With 5 seconds remaining, the Americans finally managed to get the puck out of their zone, and the crowd began counting down the final seconds. When the final horn sounded, the players, coaches, and team officials poured onto the ice in a ruckus celebration. The Soviet players, as awestruck as everyone else, waited patiently to shake their opponent's hands. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of it. Now, the one good thing about hockey, I actually like hockey. I'm not really, I can follow what's going on the ice, but I don't know, like, how you get a penalty. I'm assuming it's being too rough on the ice. But at any rate, I've been to live hockey games. And when you sit in the front row, you're just like expecting to have like a hockey player in your lap. And I just love that. It is so invigorating when you're in the front row and you've got the plexiglass being shook because 2 guys just rammed into the side of the ice rink, and you're like, oh man, I wish I could have a hockey player on my lap right about now. But anyway, yep. But yeah, I mean, and actually, the Soviets were also dominant in gymnastics, both men and women, by the way. I think the first time the Soviets did not win were actually when they were the unified team. They were not the Soviets anymore. Hey, Gio. They were at that time the unified team, and this was in 1996, and the U.S. women's team won the gold medal in the team competition for women. So, but yeah, the Soviets were great at sports. Okay, on to tonight's topic. Do Christians need to obey the Mosaic Law? Hint, according to Jesus, they do. So we're going to Matthew 5:17. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. I have no idea what he means by fulfilling them. But this is a bunch of hogwash anyway. So, if you know what the hell he means, go ahead and at me in the chat, please. Because I have no idea what he means. Verse 18. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. So right there, he's saying, hey, the Mosaic Law still stands. You people, you say you're my followers, but I've been telling you right now, in Matthew 5, I've been telling you, and I know this is to a Jewish audience, okay? I get that, but still, the Christians believe it's to them too. And if the Christians believe it's to them too, then they have to obey the Mosaic Law just as much as the Jews do. Until heaven and earth disappear. That's what he says. Verse 19. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. That's interesting. GeoSam, I know. I'm wondering what it means by being fulfilled. That's what I'm wondering about. Because that never made sense to me. It still doesn't, to tell you the truth. But like I said, this is a nonsensical book. So how are you supposed to make sense out of nonsense? Okay. Verse 20. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. And when he's talking about the Pharisees, he's talking about pretty much public good works. The Pharisees love to be seen by men. That's in another passage that he says. The Pharisees love to be seen by men doing their alms and praying to God and yada, yada, yada. They love to be seen by men. They have their reward. That kind of thing. Not that I believe this actually ever happened. I can get behind the fact that there was a Yeshua who was a quote-unquote prophet at this time and a Messiah figure. But truth be told, Messiah figures at this time were a dime a dozen. And it doesn't surprise me at all that a Yeshua would have been crucified. I'm sure there was more than one Yeshua crucified at this time. Yeshua was a very popular name. And like I said, messianic figures at this time were a dime a dozen. And this is how Rome dealt with people who wanted to try to overthrow the Roman government. they didn't deal with Romans that way because it was against Roman law to treat Romans like that. They usually just had Romans beheaded. But, anyone non-Roman could be crucified. And, okay, Gio. Thank you. So, at any rate, and I've said this a bit. I can't remember what episode I said it in, but I have said if you look throughout the New Testament has a pro-Roman slant to it. You have to look for it, but it's there. Pilate was a very mean man. He had no trouble whatsoever sentencing people to death. But the gospel writers want to put it on the Jews that it was the Jews who put their Messiah to death. Okay? Well, the Jews would have stoned him. That's how the Jews put people to death back then, stoning. But pro-Roman slant, they want to get Pilate out of this. Pilate's, according to the gospel, Pilate's like, well, I don't know. Maybe. You say he's from Galilee? Yeah, I'll go stick it to Herod. Let Herod take care of it. And then Herod's like, I'm not taking care of this. Send him back to Pilate. And Pilate's like, I don't know. Your feast is coming up and I can release one of the guys to you. Why don't I just release this guy? I'll give him a good beating and I'll release him to you. And, I really don't want to put this dude to death. You see this if you look for it, In other words, they're saying, in effect, it's not the Romans' fault that Jesus was put to death, even though crucifixion was a Roman punishment. It wasn't the Romans' fault that Jesus was put to death. It was the Jews' fault Jesus was put to death. And this is where you get into the thing about Christianity being invented, and and I actually do believe it was invented. I believe a messianic figure existed, and probably a lot of messianic figures were crucified because that's just how it was. But I don't believe this particular Yeshua existed. I don't believe that the Gospels were written by eyewitnesses, and the scholarly consensus backs me up on this. The only one who was contemporary in the least to this Yeshua would have been Paul. And Paul goes so far as to say, hey, look, I never met the man. I just saw him in a vision. So, and that's why I'm doing my Josephus thing, because, Josephus was there. Probably at the tail end of Jesus' life, if in fact this Jesus existed, which I tend to think he's a conglomerate. I haven't found anything to change my mind yet. I'm more than willing to change my mind. But at any rate, and then you've got the thing with the virgin. And Dr. Josh has talked about this before. The term virgin in the Hebrew Bible could mean someone who's never had sex with a man, but doesn't always mean someone who hasn't had sex with a man. And the writers of the gospel didn't have the Hebrew to go on. They used the Greek. They used the Septuagint, because that's probably all they could read. So when the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek, the Septuagint mistranslated would be the best word for it. A word that can sometimes mean never had sex with a man, to a word that always means hasn't had sex with a man. And this is how you can tell that these gospel writers didn't know what the hell they were talking about. They were trying to make their particular form of Jesus, their particular interpretation of Jesus, fit into this preconceived notion of what the Messiah would be. Now, it's very interesting, this Messiah figure. And I'll go ahead and tell you, but we are going to cover it later, because we're going to cover the whole Bible. If you look very closely at Isaiah, I think it is, it's talking about, this is when Christians are going to say this is a messianic prophecy. This prophecy is about Jesus. All right, well, we know it's not, because this particular passage, and I can't remember where it is, but like I said, I'll get there. This particular passage says that this Messiah is going to be born of a virgin, and before he knows to choose the right and reject the wrong, one of the neighboring kingdoms is going to come upon Judah and make it a vassal kingdom. That's not Jesus, because by the time their version of Jesus comes on the scene, they've already been a vassal kingdom of Rome for a very long time. So, at any rate, it depends, Warren. There is a lot of discussion on whether or not the quote-unquote Jesus of the Bible, if there was such a person, was born when they say he was born. Most people put it at 6 BCE, which would put it even, which would put Jesus even, Jesus' death, if it happened, even further from Josephus. However, Josephus was a priest, and he was in Jerusalem, and his father would have known about this Jesus movement if it had actually been taking place at that time. And we see no evidence of a Jesus movement at this time. Now, that is in my Josephus series. And I've got a lot more to go on it. So it's definitely not finished yet. And, I'm definitely going to get in there and, do all the nitty gritty. But, yeah, the Jesus movement was not part of anything that Josephus said was happening around this time. Geo, not according to Jesus. Not according to Jesus. Let me look that up again. Do not, Matthew 5:17. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. This is Jesus talking. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Verse 18. This is the verse that is critical. Verse 18. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Now, you could argue he's talking about the Jews here, but the Christians are Jesus followers also. And Jesus was a Jew, so would it not make sense for Christians to also keep the Mosaic Law, since their own God-man said, hey, look, it's not going to pass away until everything is accomplished? So that's what I get out of it, Geo. Oh, thank you very much. I'll have to look that up. Thank you for telling me that. So, like, Jesus is saying in there, hey, look, you still have to obey the law. Now, I know that God's covenant wasn't made with the Gentiles. I understand that, and the Jews definitely don't go pushing their beliefs on anybody else. But if you want to follow the Bible, if Christians really want to follow the Bible, especially their God-man, then they must keep the Mosaic Law, because that's what their God-man says. Keep the Mosaic Law, because I'm not abolishing it. That's what he says. Hey, look it up. Matthew 5:18. I'm not kidding you. So, at any rate, Geo Sam, thank you for that comment. I will look up the 8 covenants. And at any rate, I will let you guys go. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to, oh, I do have some patron-only content out now. I do plan to be a bit more abrasive on my patron-only, on my Patreon, because I don't expect Christians to be over there. It's fine if they want to, but I'm not expecting them to be. So I am going to be a bit more abrasive, a bit more like I am on the Rages channel, if you've ever seen me over there, on my patron-only content. And then there's also going to be, premieres that you guys get a little bit sooner if you are a patron of mine. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you, Geo. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful, wonderful night, everyone. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.